And now we're about to welcome to our podium our speaker, Caroline Chang, who's graciously agreed to be here with us today. And she's going to share some of the same information that she shares in her blog and in her podcast. But she's going to be talking about her unique personal experience with spirit and coming to oneness, as so many of us have that have found unity. I look forward to hearing this message on the greatest problem facing the world today. So please welcome Caroline Chang. I think that's all set.
Thank you so much. So, let's see. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Give me just a second. I'm not used to the mics and stuff, but I know all. Can you hear me okay? Okay, awesome. All righty. Thank you so much, Lee. Yes, and thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here and to have the opportunity to share this message with the world. Oh, there we go. There's the world. Okay, the earth. Okay. I actually changed the title a little bit because I said words are very important. And originally I said the biggest problem in the world today. And our focus is going to be on the solution. So that's why it's the solution to all the world's problems. So I changed it to the positive aspect of the solution. Okay, okay, my journey to awakening actually began when I was very young. I was sent to Catholic school, like I don't know how many of you have been, but my family, we weren't not Catholic, but they wanted me to get a better education. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey. My father was a dentist, so he wanted his children to get a good education, and this was in the early 60s and mid-60s, and so I was sent to Catholic school for my first 6 years from K to 5th grade. And in Catholic school, you're taught religion every day. And as a youngster, what I was being taught, the dogma of religion, of Catholicism, did not resonate with me. Now, I did not know that word at 5 years old. I could not say, well, this is not resonating with me. But it just didn't. It fell off. And my father was very strict. He said children are to be seen and not heard. So I couldn't say to my dad, even at home, I couldn't say, what I'm learning in Catholicism and religion, it's not resonating with me as true. But so as a very young child, there was an inner spirit that was speaking to me, and we all have that. And a lot of times we allow adults, teachers, parents to kind of have us not go with the flow of spirit within us, but from a very young age, I always did. So I was kind of like the black sheep of the family because I was always like following spirit and not what I was being. I wasn't a bad kid, but I just, I was just, kind of going with the flow of spirit, even from a very young age. So I didn't. So at the age of 15, I was introduced to this book, Think and Grow Rich. And this came to me because of my first crush. I was 15, I had a crush on a boy, and he was all into making money. He was older, he was 19, so we really couldn't date or anything because he was my cousin's best friend and too old for me, and I was only 15, so my parents, that was a no-no dating anyway. But he said, here, check out this book, Think and Grow Rich. Now, I wasn't that, the money thing wasn't a thing with me, never has been. For me, what I got from this book is that our thoughts create our own reality. And that was the first time that idea was ever introduced to me. So that was like, what? My thoughts are creating my reality? So that kind of opened It's something inside of me. So as I got older and grew up, I started studying metaphysical principles. I started studying about chakras, meditation, yoga, just reading anything I can get my hands on to learn more. And everything I was reading and studying really resonated with me, but there was a missing piece. There was something, and I knew it was just one thing that was missing for me to understand all of this. And I didn't know what that one thing was. So I was still searching for that one thing. And then it was quantum physics that gave me the one piece I was looking for. In 2007, I watched What the Bleep, Do We Know? And What the Bleep Down the Rabbit Hole. I bought both CD sets, and it was very long. I mean, I was glued to it. I watched everything. But it wasn't, now this is many, many hours. And I say if you watch this, watch the movie part of it. It's a movie and documentary. Movie part of it I wasn't that thrilled with, but the documentary I was very interested in. And you can watch just the documentary portion of it. But it was actually just one sentence that woke me up. Lynn McTaggart, who is a journalist, she's not a scientist, she's a journalist. She said the biggest problem in the world today is the illusion of separation. That we're not truly separate. That this podium is not separate from me. The floor, none of you, that is truly God, all that is. And that, my term for God is all that is. God, all that is, source, is one thing. It's just one thing. And that was a big awakening. Now, it wasn't an awakening from an intellectual level for me. It was something literally woke up inside of me. It was a soul awakening and a heartfelt awakening. So that just took me on a whole different path. And I thought, to me, it was so simple. Everything's just one thing. I get it. I thought everybody should get it. I couldn't understand why everybody couldn't get it. So in that film, What the Bleep, and introduced quantum entanglement, which Einstein said about quantum entanglement over 100 years ago. So he called it spooky action at a distance. Basically what it is they have proven scientifically if you separate a pair of photons, and they're even on the other side of the Earth, if one turns its axis at the same time, the other will turn at the same time. Like there's no traveling. It is instantaneous. And like I said, Einstein called this spooky action at a distance, and he didn't like it. And that was back in 1950s and 40s. And also in the film, it talks about the unified field theory. Unified field theory just talks about, from a very scientific term, everything is connected and interdependent. Anything moves, it affects the whole universe. I mean, everything is interconnected and interdependent, and it has been proven scientifically. So, and this science, the science of quantum physics, is over 100 years old, so it's not even new science we're talking about. Okay, this clicker doesn't like me. Okay, let's see. Oh. All right, there we go. Okay. I don't know, okay. The truth, so basically from that film, and basically, honestly, from that one sentence that Lynn McTaggart shared, I understood the universal truth of oneness, that we were all connected. And to me, it was a very simple understanding. I didn't have to be a scientist to understand that oneness. And the truth of, let's just go back to that slide. The truth of universal oneness. Now, the truth of universal oneness, when you understand oneness from a core, heartfelt level, when you look at another person, you're just seeing yourself. That's when you really get it. You don't see a separate person. You see another aspect of you, another aspect of God. Okay, now, also, in 7th grade, I had a key awakening also. Okay. When we were studying atoms and molecules, I put the little video there. When we were studying atoms and molecules, my science teacher, I'll never forget, when my science teacher said, nothing is really solid. That kind of blew me away. You know, this seems really solid, doesn't it? But we know if we put this table under a high-powered microscope, what do we see? Yeah, we see moving particles called atoms. And do you know that recently, does anybody know how much space is in an atom? That it's 99.99999% empty space. Okay, so what is that really telling us? That this physical world that we think is solid is not solid at all. It's still spirit. We think of solid material, and spirit as separate, and they're not. We are still spirit, even in physical form. But we're spirit, we're vibrating at a very low density, and so that makes it appear solid. But we're still, everything is still spirit. Okay, so that was a key awakening, a key point to my awakening in 7th grade. The visible spectrum of light. Okay, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but that little sliver of color in the center of the visible spectrum of light is what we can physically see with our eyes. So it's a very tiny sliver. So that just shows us that our sight is very limited. Very, very limited. This is just another, the electromagnetic. We know that there's microwaves, there's gamma waves, there's all kinds of waves. Humans, with their senses, can detect about 0.005%. So does this sound new to anybody, or were we all aware that our human body is just extremely limited? Okay, recently, what was discovered, scientists have discovered dark energy and dark matter. This is just energy and matter that we can't see. And it makes up the majority of the universe. What we can actually see that scientists are saying is 0.4%. That makes up the stars and the planets and all of that. So that's what we can actually see with our physical eyes. Now, I say all of this, all these slides were to make one really important point. Our 5 human senses of sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell are extremely limited. Now, have you heard anybody say, if I can't see it, I don't believe it? Okay? So if a person is saying, if I can't see it, touch it, taste it, if I can't detect it with my 5 senses, it isn't real. And we have a lot of people believing that. They are discounting 99.9 or more % of what is actually around them. So that's the reason I was showing all the slides about how limited our senses were, because I think it's a very important point for us to understand, that we cannot just go, okay, mind versus heart intelligence. Okay, also, everything I'm sharing here is important. When I share, I say to people, please do your own research. Don't just take what I'm saying. Go, we have the internet. It's a beautiful thing, Google. There's an organization called Heart Math that has, through scientific research, determined that our heart is much more intelligent than our brain. So our heart intelligent, our brain intelligent works off of our 5 senses. Well, we can, our limited 5 senses. But our heart intelligence is connected to a higher source, is connected to source, our higher self. And our heart intelligence works off of limited spirit knowing. So when you go with your heart instead of your head, your mind, it really, a lot of times we don't do what our heart is telling us because our mind is telling us not to. But if we have a choice, it's a heart that's much more intelligent. And you can do some research on heart math. It's a really good organization. So now what is oneness? Okay, oneness is not a religion. When I launched my show almost 5 years ago, Awake to Oneness, my friends were saying, what is this oneness? Is this a new religion? Like, oneness is the opposite of a religion. And I say it's the opposite of a religion because in oneness, there are no boundaries. There's no border. It doesn't matter what you believe, what your beliefs. It doesn't matter your culture. It doesn't matter anything. There's no borders. There's no boundaries. You're all one with divine source. And so, to me, oneness is the opposite of a religion. Not saying anything bad about religion either. You know, but religion is all well and good. It's all part of the oneness. Okay, so oneness is actually at the core of all religions. If you really search the history of all major religions, you will find oneness at the core of all major religions. So we already know science has proven oneness, and now we also can see that religion also. Now there is two types of collective consciousness. We're all one. So our consciousness is a collective. And there's two types. And right now, we're living in separation consciousness. And what do you get with separation consciousness? You get war. Okay, what we have. Okay, now when we awaken and remember that we're all one, we will have unity consciousness and we will have peace. Separation consciousness brings us hunger. Separation consciousness, okay, brings us poverty and homelessness. Separation consciousness, sorry, I'm not sure why this clicker doesn't like me. Separation consciousness brings us illness, sickness, and disease. All of this is from separation consciousness. Okay. Separation consciousness brings us crime, mass shootings, and again, more war. This is what we have right now in our world. And we have it because of separation consciousness. Now, unity consciousness brings us world peace. And some people don't believe it's possible. I believe it's possible in our lifetime. I do. World peace. Unity consciousness brings us world peace. Unity consciousness brings us unconditional acceptance of others, regardless of their religion, regardless of their skin color, regardless of anything. Brings us unconditional acceptance, unconditional forgiveness, and unconditional love, because we know that other, we have non-judgment for that other, because we know that other is just another aspect of us and also another aspect of God, all that is. So this is, to me, is the perfect symbol of oneness, is the yin-yang symbol. I sometimes say that wrong. But this symbol, to me, is the perfect symbol because the light and the dark are equal. Now, this is a very important point. I was here last week, and I love Reverend Pastor Doean, but she was talking about all our good comes from God, which is true. That's the light, that's the white. But that's only half of the equation. What we label bad also comes from God. And it's our labeling it bad. It's not bad. It's all one. We live in a dualistic reality where you have contrast. So the dark and the light are equal. So when we understand that what we are calling bad, evil, is also all that is. It is also God. It's not separate from God. And this is where, this is the point that I think a lot of spiritual people kind of lose track of that thought. They wanted, if we think that bad is separate, evil is separate from us, we're still in separation consciousness. Unity consciousness is understanding it is all God. It is all one. Okay, so science has proven that everything is the same energy. That's another thing I love. All the things that really resonate as true for me has been backed up from science, and science still has a long way to go. But science has proven that everything is the same energy. Like I was just talking about the light and the dark. The lower vibration is dark. Higher vibration is light. But it's all the same energy vibrating at different frequencies. So what we want to do is raise our vibration because we want to vibrate at a high frequency. Okay, humans, with their limited perspective, judge things, good, bad, evil, we judge things. But in truth, it just is, because it's all God. So it just is. It's how we respond to it. So when things happen in our life, if we call it bad, then it is. But we could also look at everything that happens has a positive, because everything has that light and dark. So it's where we focus. Do we want to focus on the dark aspect of it, or do we want to focus on the light? Because there is light in every situation. Our greatest challenges are our greatest blessings, because it's in our greatest challenges that inspire us to awaken, that inspire us to remember who we truly are. I think it's got a little more light. Yes. So yes, we judge our challenges as a bad thing, but from spiritual perspective, our challenges are our greatest blessings. My journey with my son Kyle. Kyle is my youngest, and he came into this life experience November 24th, 1984. And he transitioned from this life experience July 1st, 2014. And I say transition because I know there is no death. I know that he is just as much with me now as he was then, and in truth, more. Because when he was in physical body, he was not with me all the time. Now, in spirit, he is with me all the time. So I use this as the previous slide said, our greatest challenge is our biggest blessing. So for a parent to have a son transition before them, I think is one of the greatest challenges that a person could go through. And actually, I didn't think I could go through it. My son was 29 when he transitioned. He was 26 when he was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. And that was in 2011. And towards the end of that year, doctors told me he wasn't going to make it. He was on life support. He had been medevaced to a hospital in Philadelphia from Pocono Medical, and he was on life support for 5 weeks. Doctors had told me that he wasn't going to survive. And I just knew. I was like, well, I didn't say this to the doctors. I knew I was not going home without my son. So I went up to a waiting room, separate from his ICU unit, and took a bottle of sleeping pills. They were over-the-counter sleeping pills. I couldn't get a prescription sleeping pills. But I tried to kill myself. And I wrote a suicide note. I am not going to bury my son. My son is going to bury me. And I also he needed a heart, and I wanted them to give him my heart. So obviously I didn't transition. A week after that, they had me on 24-hour suicide watch. When I came to and was out of the ICU, they put me in a regular room, but had me on 24-hour suicide watch. And they said to me I would be able to visit with my son for about an hour a day, supervised visit. And I whispered to him, about a week after the suicide attempt, I whispered in his ear. I said, Kyle, get better so we can both go home. That night, he pulled himself off life support, himself. He pulled out the ventilator, he pulled out the feeding tube. His vital signs were perfect. The doctor said it was like he wasn't even sick. That's how good his vital signs were, after he pulled himself off life support. Then a week later, he and I went home together. From that miracle, because that was a true medical miracle I was blessed, granted. From that miracle, I made a promise to God. I said, God, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I didn't know if God, he was going to transition the next day. I didn't know what was going to happen. I said, God, I will never, ever, ever, ever forget this. And I will never, ever stop thanking you for me being able to bring my son home. And that was December 31st. We came home the 30th, the day before New Year's Eve. December 30th, 2011. I brought my son home. And I never did not keep that promise to God. He got ill again 2.5 years later and went back into the hospital. We were at the same hospital. Now, we're at the same hospital where I tried to kill myself. And as many of the staff people are still the same people there, and they're all like worried about me. But he did transition this time. And I said, when he was going into the hospital that time in 2014, spring of 2014, I said, I don't know what's going to happen this time. I don't know if I'll be able to bring him home this time. But I said, I can't stop thanking you. I was thanking God as they were taking him to the hospital. I did not stop thanking God. So when he actually transitioned, I was at peace. I was at peace because I knew, number one, he wasn't going anywhere. He was still going to be with me. I knew, number two, that it was his soul's choice to go. No soul leaves this earth before its time. Our higher self, our soul, knows the perfect timing, divine timing for us to go. So I knew it was, and I knew that it was a soul plan that he and I had made. One of the books I was reading just before he transitioned was Your Soul's Plan by Robert Schwartz, who was my first guest on my show. But that talks about how we make soul plans with the people we're in relationship with. So this was a soul plan. But that's my angel. Now, 6 months after Kyle's transition, Spirit woke me up in the middle of the night and said, just do it. That's what Spirit said. And the just do it was start my radio show, internet radio show. I never had heard of the word podcast at that time. I just like, internet radio, okay. I get up at 1:30 in the morning, Google, how do you start an internet radio show? And I founded a foundation in my son's memory, the Kyle Foundation. But Kyle, you see how I spell his name? It's an acronym. Kyle is an acronym for Keep Your Light Expanding. So Awake to Oneness Radio and the Kyle Foundation was born 6 months after my son's transition. Now, when I started my radio show, I honestly didn't know. I knew I wasn't one to guest, but I didn't know what kind of guests I was going to get. I was actually recommended to have this lady, Suzanne Giesman, be one of my guests. She is what they call an evidential medium. Now, when Kyle transitioned, I knew I wanted a reading with a medium. I did not go looking for a medium. I said, I want a reading, but that medium has to come to me. And she actually did come to me because she was recommended by another guest. She was a guest on my show. And a week before Kyle's birthday, I told you, Kyle's birthday is November 24th. So sometimes his birthday is right on Thanksgiving Day. So in 2016, his birthday fell right on Thanksgiving Day. I had called Suzanne Giesman a week before that, and I just said, I'm thinking about Kyle a lot. She said, we're going to have a reading on his birthday. I said, but that's Thanksgiving Day. I didn't want to take her from her family. She said, she also, not only is she a medium, she is a channel. She channels her spirit guides by the name of Sanaya. It'd be great to Google her if you don't know about her. But her spirit guide had already told her that she was going to do a reading for a mom that son was in spirit before she got my call. Then when she got my call, she knew that her spirit guides had already told her she had to give me a reading on his birthday. So now this was what happened during some of that. Okay, during that, now I personally had never heard of electronic voice phenomena, never heard of it. Now, this is my very first reading with a medium, never had a reading before, never heard of electronic voice phenomena. Now she's heard of electronic voice phenomena, which is EVP, but she had never experienced. In the hundreds and hundreds, she does hundreds of readings. She had never experienced it. Soon as she invited Kyle in.
We go, and then when we really lock in the connection with him, then you ask him any questions you want. Okay? All right, so here we go. All of a sudden. Do you hear it?
No.
You don't hear it?
No.
Wow, you'll hear it on the recording. It was this whooshing sound. As soon as I said, here we go, it was really distracting. You'll hear it on my audio recording. Okay.
Okay.
And here it comes again. You guys got to hold that down. Wow. Okay, so I don't want to be distracted by that, so cut that out. Okay. It is very distracting, though. Okay, here we go.
That's interesting. I don't hear it.
You don't hear it? Okay. Okay. All right.
So even, the thing is, she didn't realize at that time what was happening, because it had never happened to her before. Kyle was actually trying to communicate through her. That was that whooshing sound. Now live, I could not hear it. Of course, you hear it loud as day in the audio. I could not hear it a thing live, and it had never happened to her before, so she didn't know what was going on at that moment. Okay, the next one. Okay, now all through, we had like a 35-minute session, and it's all recorded. All through the session, you could hear the whooshing. In this particular spot, you actually could. Now, I've never told, now everybody knew Kyle had a heart condition, but I never told anyone exactly what caused his transition. I never told, so that she could not read that anywhere. That's information she had to get directly from Kyle, and you'll hear it in a second. And you also will hear, if you listen closely, you'll hear my dog Coco bark. Coco transitioned in the summer of 2007. Okay, listen to this one.
That's how that feels. There's a little bit of trouble breathing, and the word embolism comes up. Okay. And let's go. This feels like he's trying to show me some things that may have happened at the end. I don't normally hear embolism. They may have had some problem with clots.
Yes. Yes.
You did? Okay.
Yes.
Wait till you hear this sound. I've never heard it coming through my computer. It's a vibrational thing. And he says he's doing it. He's messing with the electronics, so you can cut it out then. We got you. Unless you want to give us some electronic voice, EVP would be awesome. Never heard that. Okay.
Oh, wow.
I heard a sound there. It might have been your laugh, but it gave me the image of a very small, white, fluffy dog. Do you have a fluffy white dog, or you've had one?
Had one. She's crossed over.
Yeah, well, he's holding her like this. And so she's fine, Mom. And so am I.
Yes. So my little dog, Coco, came through to let me know, because I really felt bad when she transitioned, because I felt like I didn't do enough. And so Coco came through, he's holding Coco. And before she mentions the dog, you can hear Coco's bark clearly. Hear Coco's bark and embolism. That was how Kyle did transition, and I never mentioned that to anyone. She couldn't read it anywhere. That came directly from Kyle. And there's one more now. In this last one, you can actually, if you hear closely, listen closely, you can actually hear Kyle's voice. And this, Kyle, you can hear Kyle's voice saying, doing it. You have to listen real close.
and just says that he knows that you would do anything to have him back, or you would even be just to be with him. But he says you still have a lot of work to do, and you're doing it. But it also feels like, I know he's saying that you feel like you're not doing enough, and he says, chill out, Mom.
Yes. So it took me a while, actually. I could hear his voice, and she actually jumped out of her skin. She sent me this audio, and I didn't listen to it for 2 days later. I listened to it, and I heard where I could hear Kyle's voice right at that spot, and I sent it back. I said, Suzanne, listen to this one spot. And she said, holy, I won't repeat it. But it had never, it was just because you could literally hear his voice. And when you listen close enough, you hear him saying, he's saying doing it. So it's just amazing. So I have physical evidence that my son is not gone, and he's still very much with me. He's the co-host of the show. He told me that, and he's very proud of the show. Yes. So, who we are. Okay, this is who we are. We are unique, holographic, multidimensional aspects of God. And it's each of these words are very important. Unique, holographic. These images are really showing what holographic means. My favorite quote is, Rumi, you are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. That's what holographic means. We know we have trillions of cells in our body. We know if we take a tiny microscopic cell from our body, and if someone knows how to clone, they can take that microscopic cell and grow another identical you. Because all of you is in that tiny, tiny microscopic cell. So all of God, all that is in each of us. We are tiny holographic cells of God. So we're not a piece of God. We are all of God in a drop. That's why I love Rumi's quote. So that's what holographic means. And the other great aspect of us is we're unique. No two snowflakes are alike. No two people are alike, and that's the way it's supposed to be. But we're each divine aspects of God. God is experiencing all of life through each of us. And if we don't bring our piece to the puzzle is incomplete, because no one else can fill our spot. So about shining our light, that's what we're here to do. And when we don't shine our light, that puzzle's incomplete. Okay, all there is the now. Now that speaks to the multidimensional aspect of it. We're living many lives right here and now. And scientifically, Stephen Hawking, who is a great scientist who just recently died not long ago, has discovered that the now not only affects the future. Now we all know that the now affects the future, but the now also affects the past. So it's the now that counts, and all of our power is in the now. Einstein's famous quote, time is merely an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. So the now is your power. Your point of power is in the now. And a really good book to read if you haven't read it is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Science and spirituality are teaching us that we are all one. When the collective consciousness of humanity awakens to the truth, this will solve all of our problems on the world today. So basically, it's a very simple solution to our problems. It's understanding the truth of oneness and unity consciousness. Namaste. Thank you so much. Let me get this thing on. Oh, I forgot to ask, is there any questions? I did want to ask. Can you hear me okay? Is there any questions? I didn't want to just dump all that information on you and not ask if anyone had any questions. No questions? Okay, all right, okay.